Imperial ship looked even larger up close. Its black and gold hull stretched across the mountain clearing outside Kenny's cave like a floating fortress, while steam rolled from the landing vents into the cold morning air of Eidolon Reach. The twin suns reflected across the polished armor plating while smaller escort craft circled high above the valleys below. Pines stared upward beside Kenny. I still think rich people should be taxed harder. Lyra folded her arms while watching the boarding ramp lower slowly. You say that while standing on your best friend's private planet. Exactly. I have become self-aware. The massive ramp finally slammed into the stone ground. Then the Emperor of Earth stepped out personally. Caius Vale wore no ceremonial armor this time. No crown, no banners, no crowd. Just a long black coat trimmed in gold and calm eyes that somehow still carried the weight of entire star systems behind them. But he was not alone. Another figure stepped out beside him, middle-aged, sharp-dressed, calm posture. Lyra froze instantly. Dad? Her father looked equally amused and nervous at the same time. Pines blinked slowly. Excuse me? Lyra stared in disbelief. You work for the Empire? Her father adjusted his gloves calmly. Technically. The Emperor glanced sideways. He is being modest. Pines looked between them repeatedly. No. Hold on. Your father repairs communications gadgets for the government. The Emperor spoke casually. He oversees military intelligence, strategic operations, and imperial security coordination. Silence. Pines slowly pointed toward Lyra's dad. That is significantly above gadget repair. Lyra looked genuinely betrayed. You told me you fixed satellite systems. Her father shrugged lightly. I do sometimes. Lyra stepped forward immediately. You knew I was in Eclipse this entire time? Yes. And you did nothing? Her father looked completely unbothered. You were doing fine. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. I almost died 40 times. He nodded once. But you didn't. Pines immediately burst out laughing. That is the coldest parenting I have ever witnessed. Lyra looked horrified. You watched me nearly die on live broadcasts for 4 years. Her father finally smirked slightly. You are a grown woman. It was not my business. Even Kenny almost smiled slightly at that. Lyra pointed at the Emperor accusingly. You knew too? Caius Vale nodded calmly. Your father lost several arguments attempting to secretly interfere in the games on your behalf. Her father sighed quietly. They were very convincing arguments. The Emperor looked mildly amused. They involved threatening challenge organizers. Pines wiped tears from his eyes, laughing. Oh, I love this man already. Lyra rubbed her face aggressively. I need several minutes. Her father stepped closer and hugged her briefly before she could protest further. Despite herself, she hugged him back. Pines pointed dramatically. Character development. Kenny finally gestured toward the cave entrance. We should move inside. The Emperor nodded once. The 5 entered Kenny's mountain home together while the Imperial guards remained outside near the landing zone. The cave felt strangely intimate now compared to the political weight suddenly inside it. The ruler of humanity, the Empire's second-in-command, the survivors of Eclipse, all gathered around a stone table overlooking untouched wilderness. Pines looked around slowly. This might genuinely become the most important awkward conversation in the galaxy. Nobody disagreed. The Emperor sat calmly across from Kenny while Lyra's father activated a small projection device on the table. Immediately dozens of files appeared in the air. Encrypted reports, recorded footage, financial transfers, military operations. Kenny's expression sharpened instantly. The Emperor finally spoke seriously. You asked for proof. The holograms shifted. House Rain operations appeared across multiple worlds. At first it looked ordinary. Military exports, security contracts, planetary defense systems. Then the hidden files began appearing. Unauthorized prison camps, political assassinations disguised as accidents, entire colonial disappearances, mass executions hidden beneath classified military reports. Pines stopped smiling completely. What the hell? Lyra stared silently. The projection changed again. Lord Rain speaking privately with military officers. Cold, emotionless, ordering civilian suppression operations like discussing weather patterns. Then another recording, Cassian Rain authorizing the elimination of political rivals while publicly discussing peace treaties days later. Kenny remained perfectly still. But one of his floating daggers slowly rotated beside him, harder and harder. The Emperor watched him carefully. This is only a fraction. Lyra's father expanded another file tree. House Rain spent decades building a public image as frontier protectors. Images appeared across the holograms, heroic speeches, charity projects, planetary defense celebrations. Then the overlays activated, showing the truth beneath each event. Mass propaganda manipulation, threatened journalists, forced disappearances, economic sabotage against rival systems. Pines leaned back slowly. They are psychopaths. The Emperor answered calmly. They are careful psychopaths. The projection shifted one final time. Kenny's mother appeared. The cave went silent instantly. Old footage. She stood smiling beside a younger Lord Rain years before Kenny was born. The Emperor looked toward Kenny quietly. We recovered this from sealed Rain archives. The footage continued, his mother laughing softly while walking through gardens beneath the old Rain capital. Alive. Real. Not just a memory anymore. Then another file appeared beside it. Termination authorization, approved by Lord Rain. Reason, potential emotional compromise to bloodline successor program. Pines visibly looked sick. Lyra slowly sat down beside the table. Kenny stared at the file silently. The Emperor finally spoke again. You were never wrong. No one in the cave moved. Lyra's father quietly disabled the projection. Silence settled heavily afterward. Outside the cave, the forests of Eidolon Reach moved peacefully beneath sunlight, while waterfalls echoed softly through the valleys below. Inside, everything had changed. Pines eventually broke the silence first. So what now? The Emperor folded his hands together. House Rain continues expanding. Another holographic projection appeared showing military fleet movements along frontier systems. They believe eventually they will rival Earth itself. Kenny finally spoke quietly. And you want me to stop them? Yes. The floating dagger beside him phased slowly through the stone table before reforming again. The Emperor remained calm, but not simply through violence. That caught Kenny's attention. Caius Vale leaned slightly forward. House Rain survives because people still believe their myth. Images appeared again. Rain soldiers rescuing colonists, public speeches, military celebrations. They present themselves as protectors. The Emperor's eyes hardened slightly. So we expose what they truly are. Lyra crossed her arms. And if they retaliate, they will. No hesitation, no comforting lies. Pines sighed heavily. Honestly appreciate the honesty. Kenny looked out toward the forests beyond the cave entrance. His world, his people. Settlers already trusted him now. Children in the colonies wore Reaper symbols proudly. Eidolon Reach had become something real, something worth protecting. The Emperor spoke quietly now. You already threatened House Rain directly. Kenny remained silent. They fear you because you survived outside their control. Lyra's father added calmly. And because the public adores you now more than they ever adored them. Pines blinked once. That actually sounds dangerous. It is, the Emperor replied. The cave quieted again. Then finally Kenny looked back toward the Emperor. If I help you. A pause. It happens my way. Caius Vale nodded immediately. Explain. Kenny stood slowly. The floating daggers drifted beside him while mountain light moved across the cave walls. No innocent colonies touched. The Emperor listened carefully. No mass war. Another pause. And if House Rain falls? Kenny's eyes sharpened. Eidolon Reach remains independent. Silence. Pines looked genuinely impressed now. Lyra quietly smiled slightly. The Emperor considered the demands carefully. Then finally, he nodded. Agreed. Even Lyra's father looked mildly surprised at how quickly that answer came. Kenny continued. I choose who inside House Rain survives. The Emperor answered calmly. Reasonable. Pines whispered quietly toward Lyra. This is becoming terrifyingly political. Kenny looked directly at Caius Vale one final time. And if I discover the Empire is hiding secrets this ugly too? One dagger floated slowly upward between them. The threat hung quietly in the air. The Emperor never flinched. Instead, he simply answered, Then you will come for us next. Silence. Then unexpectedly, Kenny nodded once. Because that was the first completely honest thing any ruler had ever said to him. The Emperor slowly stood from the stone table. Then for the first time since arriving, he looked less like the ruler of humanity and more like a man relieved to finally stop carrying a burden alone. Outside the cave, sunlight